Hi everyone, sorry about the delay. Internet problems. My signal went, but with any luck I've got it back, so let's start again from the beginning. So first of all, I'm going to show you some things that I've made, and these are necklaces with felt beads. And what I've done with these, I have put little beads in between each one, and that sort of spaces them, and it's really nice. I like to do that. It sets the felt beads off beautifully. And this is a bracelet, and the bracelet is great. It's on an elastic band, which means that you can stretch it out, but I really like these. They're great fun, easy to make. The other piece is this, and this is done on, well, I'll show you. I do it on a bit of foam, and this is like a snake that I make as a basic necklace, and I also put the little magnetic catches on, which is really nice. And that this is free running, so I can put it to any position I want. And then these are done in the washing machine. You know, the washing, you can throw them in while you're doing your washing. I mean, you know, 2 jobs for the sake of 1 lot of water, and that's saving water there. This is a collection of felt beads. I've made pebbles and round beads, and this is on a thin braid, which is a bead stringing braid. So, and my last one is my serpent. I like my serpent. This is done, if I put it around my neck, you can see it's got I've made a sort of hoop, and the serpent's head goes in, and I put little sparkly stones on it, and if you want to use sparkly stones, I've got some on my website. My website is feltbetter.com, and I do have a sheet for that. Yeah, so if anybody wants to visit me or send me a message, it's feltbetter.com. I answer all my emails, so, and I have a shop on there. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to tip my iPad down so you'll be able to see how I work. I think that's probably the best thing, and you can see my hands there. Let me just move that up a little bit more. Sorry about all the shaking around, but that's it. I usually use Zoom, and I have a webcam for that, but it doesn't really work with Facebook. So if I just move further along, that's better. So, very simple materials. I use a towel, as you can see, bubble wrap. Bubble wrap, you can get bubble wrap anywhere. And also I use a little sushi mat. These you can get in supermarkets. The last thing, apart from the scissors, is I have in here a piece of olive oil soap. I use olive oil soap because the wool likes it better, and also my hands like it better. Good. So you can see my hand, and you can see what I'm doing. Now, there are some things I made earlier, and I'm going to show you how to make them. This is looks like a sausage, but actually it's how you make felt beads. And when I make this, I then cut the beads off like that. And when they're dry, I will I put my needle through with some, I use a special elastic here. This is what I use, and because it's stretchy, it's oh, that one isn't stretchy. Sorry, this is the stretchy one, I think. And elasticity, it's called. Great stuff. And that's it. It's elastic, so, and you can just knot it. You don't have to glue it. You just do 3 knots and it holds. So I like to string up my these particular beads that way. So I'll have a whole row of beads, and I'll also do some spacers. Now, by spacers, I mean, you know, little single beads, little glass beads, and it holds them away from each other, and it looks really nice. And you can use all sorts of beads. I have a whole collection of different beads that I use. I've got so much junk in my shed. So these are little silver metal ones, and these are like little ceramic ones, and they make really nice spacers. So to make those felt beads, it's very simple. So I'm going to use some merino wool. This is my favorite wool because it's very fine and it felts very easily. And felt making is a very ancient craft, and it dates back some 8,000 years. However, I don't think they used bubble wrap then. They probably went out and killed a goat and used the freshly killed goat skin as a base. So I use bubble wrap because I'm now in the 21st century, and it keeps my wool warm, it holds water, and it gives me something textural to rub against, because felt is only shrunk wool. So what we need to do is make sure that the wool, the fibres of the wool, are going to shrink together. It's a bit like throwing your best jumper in the washing machine on a hot wash, which is something you don't really want to do. But with this you do. So this is all controlled shrinkage. And I use unspun wool. It's very easy to get hold of. I also sell it on my website, so feltbetter.com. I've got some lovely wools, especially for making jewellery. So if anybody is interested, they can go onto my site and purchase some. So I'm now pulling my wool out very gently. I don't want to have too much, because if I have too much, it's the felting solution doesn't penetrate. I need to do 4 layers of wool, so it's always better to have more layers finer than less layers thicker. So that's my little story for today. Now, I like to do different colours on each level. So here I've got some my favourite wool here. So this is beautiful. This is many coloured, a bit like Joseph and his many coloured coat, and that is going to go in the opposite direction. So you always cross the fibres. You cross the fibres, and it's almost like a weaving process. The fibres will work in and out and up and down, but that's how you make a really good piece of felt. So I don't know if anyone was with me on my felt flowers, and I showed you how to make felt. So that's my second layer there. Now I'm going to do another layer, and I'm going to use the same purple again, because, well, lilac really, because I think it's really pretty, and spring has sprung. I've got daffodils outside my shed, and crocuses coming up everywhere, and it makes you feel so much better. It sort of lifts you, doesn't it? You know, after all these dark nights and dark mornings, and now it's really lovely. So I put that away because that was getting too small, and go back to this. So carefully lay my fibres over. I try not to make this square too big, so I try and keep to about 10 centimetres square or 4 inches square. Invariably it grows, but you know, at least I can try. So now I've got my last layer to go, which will be my 4th layer, and that will go back on top again, just like that. There. So those are my 4 layers, and I've got my square a little bit bigger than it started, and I've got my water here, and I always use a lukewarm water, and all it is a lump of soap at the bottom of my jug, and I just top the jug up with warm water, and it just emulsifies, and I'm just adding a little bit of water in the front, no more than that, and then very carefully I'm going to roll up my fibres really, really tightly. If you have any questions about this, please drop me a line, or I'll read some of the comments afterwards, and I'll try and reply to all of you. So I've now got this sort of sausage shape, and I lightly roll my hands over backwards and forwards on the bubble wrap, and the bubble wrap has got the bubbles side upwards, so it's got the texture there, and I'm rolling it backwards and forwards, and it's going to start felting from the inside out. So I'm going to start feeling the core of it beginning to firm up, and when that happens I can give it a little bit more pressure, but I'm really being very light at the moment because I don't want to get it out of shape. Now if you don't like doing this, what you can do is you can roll it up in your bubble wrap like that, and just roll it backwards and forwards in the bubble wrap. It does exactly the same thing, but don't give it too much pressure. The pressure will push it out of shape. So gradually it's starting to felt, and I can feel that happening inside. Now the other thing I can do, I can see it's felting because the colours, the wool is getting a little bit matted on the outside. The other thing I could use is my Sushi Mat. So I can pop that in my Sushi Mat and roll it up. And I really like my Sushi Mats. They're really useful for all sorts of things. Little felt samples, felt flowers, felt beads. But I don't use them for sushi, so you don't want fish smelling felt. It's clean Sushi Mat. And if you can't get them in your local supermarket, you know, there's lots of internet sites where you can get them. It's one thing I don't sell on my website. So I can feel that the hardening on the inside. So I can give it a little bit more pressure, and that pressure is firming up my my shape. And the reason I kept to that 10 centimeters square, 4 inches square, was because if you make it too big, it becomes like a wild snake, and you can't really control it. And you don't really need a great long one. You can get enough beads out of here for a necklace, so it's ample. So all the time it's shrinking. Now wool, when you felt it, is going to shrink, especially using this merino wool, about 30%. So you know that it's going the size that you want. So make sure that the when you lay your layers, you can you put enough in there that it's going to shrink down to something which is going to make a nice size bead. Now I believe that my felt instructions were put on the Virtual Village Hall Facebook page. I'm pretty sure it was, and there are, or it has been, or it will be, but and the instructions are for making the felt bead. So if you can't remember, although of course this video is recorded and you can access it at any time. You see, if you get feeling in the middle of the night, I must make some felt beads, it's there for you to see. I think that's very clever. I'm surrounded by wool here. I love wool. I've got drawers and drawers of bags and all sorts of things going on, but I do live in dread of the moth. So I also have bags of lavender, pheromone strips, anything I can think of. I spray regularly to keep the little blighters out. So it's getting tighter and tighter, I can feel, and when it gets like this, I can start rolling it in my hands, and this actually tightens it up even more. So I keep one hand straight and I just roll it with the other hand, with the palm of the hand, and very soon it will be ready to cut. It doesn't take long to make felt beads. Now, so I'm just going to cut these, because some of these will be for cutting up and threading for a bracelet maybe, or for around a necklace, but you can also turn these into round beads. So let's try this out. So here I have my bead that I've made, and I'm going to turn it into a round bead, and all I need to do is roll it in the palm of my hands. And because it's got that nice sort of whirligig pattern on, it should actually stay. And I'm just going to give it a little bit more water, just to dribble. Now there is another way of making felt beads. It's a little bit more unpredictable, I think, is probably the best way of saying. And that's by gathering wool together and starting it off like this, and then popping it into a little lingerie bag, and you have a whole collection in there, and pop them in the washing machine when you're doing a coloured wash. All the colours on the wool that I use is fast. They're all it's commercially dyed wool, and it's all fast. And you'll find when you take it out of the washing machine, you've got some really nice felt balls that you can, felt beads that you can then thread up as a necklace. So there is my felt ball, or my felt bead. As you can see, it's nicely rolling around, and I can leave that to dry. And what I do, and I did some yesterday just to show you, I use these very thin knitting needles, very fine ones. I think they're for making socks for dollies or something. But what I do, when they're wet, I pop them on here to dry, and then when I take them off, you'll see they dry with, hope you can see that, they dry with a hole, so it's all ready to thread. So that, just pop that one back on. So that one, so they're all ready to turn into a necklace. So that is one type of bead, and I'm just going to move that onto one side, and then I'm going to show you another type of bead that I've made, and that's these. And this was done, I actually used a different type of wool for this, but it doesn't really matter. You can use the merino for it as well, and I really like to do these colours, you know, bright colours. So I have this wool here, which is it's actually a German wool, and it's called Bergschaft, and it felts very easily. So what I did was I got a mix of colour. So let's pop that in, and let's find a bit of blue maybe. I mean, you don't have to mix the colours, but I just happen to like to do that. And maybe even a little bit of green as well. Let's go a bit mad here. And then I just pull the wool apart with my fingers. Like this. By the way, this wool I use a lot for needle felting, so if any of you know about needle felting, this is great wool for that. And then I just pop a little bit of water on there, not much, just some, and then gradually bring it together in my hands like that. And I'm going to roll it in my hands and do exactly the same as really I did before, just not going to that, not making it into a sausage first, just taking it straight in. And if I wanted to, I could just take this a little bit further and then pop this into a lingerie bag, and this could be one of my beads that I would put in the washing machine. But actually I'm going to do this in my hands. So the only thing I should tell you is you need to actually wash the soap out of your beads, because although it might take 20 years, soap can sort of eat the wool away a bit. So you need to make sure that you lose the soap content in. So you just give it a nice rinse in warm water. Now I'm just going to, I've got my chunk of soap here. I'm just going to add a little bit of soap to make it a bit easier to roll. And then I'll just roll it onto my mat, my sushi mat, and a bit like, I've got my hand a bit like a claw, and I've caught the ball underneath, and I'm just rolling and rolling. And these make wonderful chunky beads. They look really great, threaded up. And of course you can thread them onto leather, or as long as you use a bodkin to thread the leather through. And if you use a bigger knitting needle, you can make a bigger hole, so you've got it all ready for when you want to thread it. So that needs, it's a little bit soft. It could do with a bit more rolling, so I'll roll that a bit more. And then, now I actually don't have a spare thicker knitting needle handy, so I'm just going to leave it as it is, or I'll push it on one of my knitting needles. I think is probably the best thing, just to show you how it works. Of course, the thing about doing this on Zoom rather than Facebook is you can ask questions on Zoom, and I don't have a feeling you can't ask questions on Facebook, but never mind. I'll look at all your comments, and if you need to speak to me, if you want any questions, don't forget feltbetter.com. I'll just show you that again, feltbetter.com, and you can just message me through that, and you'll find I'll answer everything that I'm asked about within reason. Okay, so it's now a nice ball, and that's a really nice bead. I mean, that you can make a whole series all with that lovely mottly colour. And then I will now thread it onto my knitting needle. It needs a little bit of twisting here, but it does go on, and I would leave that to dry so it's all ready to thread onto my my beading cord. So just like that. It's quite good, really, isn't it? So I'll leave that on one side, and these are, as I said, are some I made earlier, and again, you know, you pull them off when they're dry. Now I can't get that one off. Get that one off, and you can see the hole through it, and it makes it so much easier, so much quicker than having to push and pull and push and pull, because otherwise, you know, sometimes you have to use pliers to get the needle through. I think I'm going to need something to get the bead off, but no, we'll do that. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is, because my favourite shop is B&Q, or, you know, any DIY shop. It's amazing what you can find there, and most of my equipment comes from places like that. I have this, and actually I found this in Australia, but I do know that you can get it here, and what it is, it's sort of like draft excluder, and it's foam. But what I use it for is I cut this, something I made yesterday. I always like these Blue Peter moments. I never got my Blue Peter badge when I was a child, which I'm very upset about. Maybe I should apply for it now. Mind you, I never made Tracy Island either. I couldn't see the point. So what I've done is I've made this, and this is my bead, which will go onto my snake that I've made earlier. So that sits at the bottom very much like this, with this one here, which I like very much, although this one is longer obviously, but I'm going to show you how to make it. It's really easy, and it looks great, and if you wanted you could actually cut these in sections so you can space them with a big a ball, so you could put like a section and then a big bead and then another section and another big bead. You can create all sorts of lovely things. So to do that, it's really simple. I keep saying that, don't I? But it is actually really simple. So I get my bubble wrap, just drying my hands here. You know, wet hands and dry wool do not work together. Always keep your hands dry if possible. So I have got, I'll make the band with that, I think. Oh, I love this wool. I love this wool. But I've got some, oh, let's do this one. Oh, this is good. So, this is great stuff. I really love this. I get seduced by wool. I get sent all these little tasty bits that, you know, in my email. Oh, special offer today, and I can't resist it. So here goes. Actually, this has got some silk in it, which is really nice. And now the silk won't felt, but the wool acts as a carrier, and it will control the silk. It will felt with the silk inside it. So you do get you do get a nice felt. And I'm just going to lay a strip, oops, can't blow that, a strip all the way down like this. Do some over here so you can see. Oh, forgot, you can't see that bit, can you? Down here like this. And I'm laying this about 12 inches. Doing it. You can do it as long as you want, because you're going to push it all up, telescope it all up, so it doesn't matter. So I don't lay a thick layer, I just lay enough that it covers the bubble wrap and I can't see the bubble wrap through it. And then I could use another colour actually inside it, because this you're not going to see, and so I'm going to use this grey, and I'm going to lay that down going in the opposite direction as I did before. I hope you're all enjoying this. I just love to get into my shed. It's my escape. I put the radio on and I listen to Audible, which is wonderful, and that's Amazon's Audible. So I listen to books being read, and I listen to Radio 4. I love plays, and music is also good, but I much prefer to listen to plays, and I get caught up in it. In fact, I was just listening today to something that was on the BBC, a podcast about the Battersea poltergeist. Whoa, fantastic, absolutely fascinating. So it's, if any of you like the idea of ghosts and ghoulies, it's a great thing to listen to. Right, so that's my second layer sitting there. 3 layers make a really good piece of felt. So my third layer is going to be the same colour again, and I'm going to lay it back over that direction. You don't make it too thick. You don't want it too thick. So that's, but this is the inside of my piece. You just want to make sure that you've covered all the fibres on the layer below. So you lay one length that way, one layer that way, and then you go back to, oh, you know, sorry, I did it the other way. One layer that way, one layer that way, and then you go back to this way again. It doesn't matter which way you start, as long as you always cross your fibres. That's the most important part. So here's my, got my done. Okay, so that's it there. Now just put that all over there, and now I'm just going to wet the whole thing. So just gently, and you can use a milk bottle, an old milk bottle. Just make some holes in the lid to take the water, so it'd be like a watering can really. You don't use too much water, because it actually too much water, the wool won't felt. Too little water, the wool won't felt. It's a bit of a balancing act. And then I'm going to carefully, I've got my felt pole in here, and I'm carefully wrapping the wool around, and I'm rolling it up, a bit like I did with the beads, rolling it all up like that. So it's, I can see a bit of, I don't want that grey there, let's cut that bit off there, don't want that. It's probably going to show itself again, but never mind. And I'm going to roll it backwards and forwards and actually stretch that over. This needs a bit more water, so there's me saying don't put too much water on, and I didn't put enough. Right. And then I'm going to wrap it up in my bubble wrap, and I'm going to roll it backwards and forwards. And it's a really nice meditative process, so you can just listen to music or plays, or just shut your eyes and just roll backwards and forwards. Sit up straight, make sure you don't hunch your shoulders. Good exercise for the arms, you won't get bingo wings. And just carry on rolling. Roll, sing a song, you can sing along with the radio. And gradually it's going to hold itself together, as you can see, and I'm going to roll it more. And this needs to be rolled until it's really firm. Just getting a bit flappy on the edges, but now I've got this little sushi mat that I use, but you can get bigger bamboo mats. What I normally do is buy a bamboo blind from a charity shop, or wherever I see one. There are certain hardware stores on the internet where you can get them, and I cut them in half lengthways. I get maybe one that's 1 meter wide, and I cut them in half, so I've got 2 mats, and it's actually big enough to do anything in, and it's really nice because I make a lot of felt. I do lots of things like bags and hats and shoes and big pieces, so wall pieces. So I do need bigger bamboo blinds, bamboo mats. The sushi mat doesn't do it for me, so it's you can use anything actually. If you don't want, if you can't get bamboo, you can get something like cutlery drawer liner, anything that's got a texture on it. It's the texture which creates that felt. So now I can feel it's beginning to felt nicely, and I want it to shrink into itself. So we'll just carry on a bit longer, and then I'll show you what to do. I'm not going to take it all the way because I've shown you I've got a piece I did yesterday, but it works really quickly as long as you use a nice olive oil soap or a soap that doesn't have a moisturizer. And if you can't get that, you can use something like a washing up liquid, maybe something like Ecover, but you only need a tiny drop because thing about olive oil soap is it doesn't foam, so you don't want bubbles. Bubbles will stop the fibres shrinking together. So it's something like a low lather soap without a moisturiser. It doesn't matter about the fragrance, it's the moisturiser which is the important thing. And if you buy wool to do, make sure it's not called superwash, because superwash means that it's had its scales stripped off so it doesn't shrink, and the scales are the things which lock together on the fibres to actually make the felt. So when the fibres shrink, the scales meet with their neighbour and make a tight fabric, a non-woven fabric. I like the stories about the beginning of felt. How was it discovered? And there's lots of things that you can think about when, you know, how did coffee come about? Who on earth discovered that if you throw beans in a fire and then you grind them up and add boiling water to it, you get a cup of coffee? And who? And the same goes with chocolate. So the story I have, and of course it's just apocryphal, I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to put my heater on first, because being out in the shed, in the garden, it's not so warm. So there was this prophet, and he was walking across the desert because God had said to him, go and preach to the people on the other side, because they're heathens and they're creating all sorts of sins, and I want you to go and preach the word of the Lord to them so that they will behave themselves. So off he trots, and he's got his sandals on, and the desert is stony and it's painful to walk, and the sun is hot and he's sweating, and just his luck, there passes by a sheep. Now in the biblical days, in fact for lasted a lot longer than that, sheep didn't get shorn. They shed their fleece naturally, and there are still some sheep today who actually have the same type of fleece where it just sheds. You don't have to cut it, it sheds. So he grabs handfuls of this wool and off he goes. He puts them inside his sandals, and each one, he pushes some wool inside each sandal, and he carries on walking. And by the time he's got to the other side to preach to the unconverted, he has got a perfect pair of felt insoles, because the heat and the sweat acts as the same as the soap because it's an alkali, and the heat and the constant pressure has turned the wool into felt, and that's how felt was born. Well, actually probably not, but I do like the story. I hope you do too. So gradually I'm going to push my felt up, tight, and telescope it up so it can't go any further, and then I'll get some string or some wool. Let's take some wool, and I'll tie one end, do a double knot, tie one end, and then pull, and to keep it in position, I mean, you could use elastic bands, and take the wool up to the other end, keep pulling tightly, and you're going to need to make a knot. So what I do is I make a knot where I take the wool back against my fingers and pull tightly, so you've got that holding it, and then I leave that, give it a rinse, get all the water get the soap out, and then leave it to dry. And as long as you leave it to dry in the air, it will be fine. So that's how you make these lovely telescopic pieces. Of course, you could make one long enough to be a whole necklace. Now I'm going to show you how to make these strands here, and you'll probably notice that my strands have got fluffy ends. Well, the fluffy ends are because you need to close this up, but I didn't want to close it up until I had threaded it through my telescopic piece that I made earlier. So let's find a way of getting that through. Maybe the other end will be better. I think you have to do it with a safety pin or something, which I don't have at the moment. So let's see if we can do it with this. I'm doing a little knot on my little needle here, like that, and pushing it through. See whether that's going to work. Probably not. No. Ah, it's going. So as it goes through, up, out the other end. Brilliant. So there it is. And then these ends, we just unpick this little knot that I put in the end. What I will do is I just tease this apart. So I've got those fluffy bits, and just pull it out like that, and then tease that apart, and then lay the two over like that. Give it a bit of felting solution, and then roll them together so that they fuse together, and then that becomes one long necklace. Very simple. Now I'm not going to go all the way to show you, because I've got other things to show, but you can see how it works. Just close it up, and then you can wear this as a necklace, and it looks really nice on. So you could actually make a long one if you wanted, or you could finish with a big felt ball at the end, each end, to just to finish it off. So that's that one. Now the next thing is making a bracelet, and the bracelet is done like it's a bangle. And to make a bangle, you need to have a core center. So I'm just going to use, I've got some white wool here. And what I need to do is, this is white merino, and this is called tops. So I'll just dry my hands. As I said, wet hands and dry wool doesn't go together. So I'm going to wrap this around my hand twice like that, And then that is the extent of it. I'm going to, you pull it apart. You have to hold your hands far apart to pull. And then I have this. Now you're going to say, how can you make a bangle out of that? Well, I'll show you. In fact, this is a little bit tight, so let's just make it a little bit looser, like that. Okay. So once I've got that, I'm going to then take some of my wool here, and I'm going to take a strip off my wool, and you can use any colour you want. That's 2 strips, and then this is a bit like making a pom-pom, really. You're going to wrap it round and you keep wrapping, and you make sure that your lines are next to each other, that you don't leave big gaps. So like that. So when you've come to the end of it, you just wrap it round and round and it will hold. So just carry on like this. I hope you can all see what I'm doing. I'm just wrapping and wrapping, and I'll take it all the way round my bangle, and it actually doesn't take too long. Oh, I've got a bit that's fallen out. Okay, so I try not to cut wool. I much rather pull wool than cut it, so try not to cut with scissors, because it makes, I don't know, I think it makes the wool cry. So now this is going to take a little while to go right the way round, but I should have made one earlier. Should have had my Blue Peter moment on one of these, but you can see how it works like that. Well, let's try and see how much we can get done. The other thing I want to show you is how to make the snake necklace, how to make that rope, the rope necklace, and then of course make the snake head. Now this is where you need an assistant who'll be doing this while you carry on with the other, but I'm afraid I haven't trained my husband well enough. He's out there playing in the garden, but when it comes to felt making, I'm afraid he's a lost cause. So what I'm going to do, I've done half. I'm going to show you how it works with half, because time is coming on and I want to get everything done. So what I would do, once I finished that, I would wet it like that, and then just in my hands I would roll it backwards and forwards. But you do need to finish the whole thing first. Don't leave it half made like I have. And it actually very quickly it starts to felt. And what's happening is the wool inside, the core wool, is felting as well as the wool that you've wrapped round, and it actually makes some really nice bracelets. And in fact I do have one to show you, so I can, once I've done this, so you can see how it's shrinking, but it's you get a really lovely effect, and it turns into a bangle, so it will be eventually a bangle that you can wear on your wrist. So just to show you, I do have in my box here one I have made before, and that's here. So you can see how it works, and you can make it to any size, and you can make a whole series of them, so you can wear a whole row of these lovely bangles, and maybe not use quite as much as wool that I've used here. So that's how you make a bangle bracelet. Very easy. It's just a matter of wrapping round. Just keep going. You know, just do it in have a rhythm going, and always when you get to the end, so when you get to the last bit of the wool, what you do is you just wrap it round and round and round and round, and it stays in that position until you wet it and it felts it. So now once we've done that, so move that out of the way, I'm going to show you how to make the rope. And you can see with my rope I made a ball and put it on the end. I made an eye on the other, and it just looks together like that. So let's have a go at that. And for that I'm going to use my grey wool, I think. Not this. No, probably this is long enough. So I'm going to take a strip about what can I say, ½ inch thick? No, probably a bit more than that, 3/4 of an inch thick. And I'm going to measure it. So remember that wool will shrink by a third. So I decide how long I want this. Put it around my neck, and if I want it tighter, I make it a bit smaller. Or if you want it longer, you can just hold your hands apart slightly and pull gently. Just pull it really gently, and it just elongates it like that. But you want to have it an even thickness all the way down. Whoops. So just gently pull too much off there. Right, so now I'm going to start making a rope, and it's so simple. And if any of you make felt bags, this is great as a handle as well. So I'm just going to put some, I'm going to do it bit by bit, and just keeping the end dry, because I'm going to add on there, I'm going to add a felt ball. So I keep that bit dry. Now if you want, you can put a little bit of plastic round it with a rubber band, so that it stays in there and you don't get it wet. But I'm used to this, so I don't suppose it will get wet. And you just roll it backwards and forwards, just backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, and you're going to work your way along the piece. And gradually it turns into a rope, and you need to give it a bit of welly. Now if I wanted to include the felt ball, let's take one of these, let's take this one on the end. There it goes. So I made this one yesterday, and I'm going to include that on the end. So what I do is I spread my fibres out, and I'm just going to wrap them round like that. I hope you can see. I just wrap them round my ball, and I'm going to felt that in, just rubbing it and felting it in, and it will become part of that end piece. If you make these felt balls and they have a crack in them, all you need to do is wrap a little bit of fibre around, just a really small amount, and just roll it and rub it. You just wet it, and it'll close the crack up. Because sometimes you get a crack and you can't help it. So this is my the end, my ball end. Just roll it backwards and forwards so it has enclosed the whole thing. Now of course the other end, which I haven't reached yet, which I will do, is I want to have that as a little eye. So what I will do is I'll get a little bit of plastic here, just cut a little piece of plastic off here, and I'm going to fold this back on itself, and I'm going to put that little piece of plastic in around it so it doesn't felt together. So I just need to make sure that it's wrapped around and that bit doesn't get felted. So that bit will be joined there. And this bit will be felted on and it becomes like an eye, but because I've got the plastic there, the two sides don't felt onto it themselves, and it keeps that eye open. And that bit of plastic is called a resist, because it resists the felting. So when I make a bag or a hat, I make sure that I use a resist so that the two sides don't fuse together. So this is what I would do. I would just make sure that I roll it, and it takes a little while, but you know, it works really quickly. And if I decide I don't want to do it on the bubble wrap anymore, do it on your towel, because that's also got a lot of texture on it, and it will dry the wool up a bit as well if it's too wet. So it's going to give us just as much texture as rolling it on the bubble wrap. So I do use my towel quite a bit. It's just as good as a bamboo mat, really. So at the end, I will have my not quite finished yet, but I'll have my ball end and my eye, which will go round like that, and that will be a lovely fastening. So, and I can thread whatever I want onto here. So that's how to make a snake, a long piece. Now, to make the snake's head, it's very much the same thing, and the other thing was these. So I'm going to tell you this really quickly. These were just little bits of wool, and you just make them as flat as you can. So just take a bit like this and flatten it, just like a little pebble, fold it over, make it flat, throw it into the laundry, the lingerie bag, and pop it in the washing machine, and you'll get some lovely flat beads. And then to make them up, I sorted out the colours. I've got all sorts of different colours that I've done, and I like a lot of greys and beiges, and they look really, really lovely, and I sell them quite well. Not from my website though. And then on my sewing machine, I just lay them out. They're all flat, and I just machine over them, and I go round and round and round and round, and I do it 3 or 4 times. So I've got 3 or 4 rounds of machine stitching all the way around, and they make great necklaces because they sit flat. I think I have to move that so you can see. They sit flat against, and they look great. Look, I'm not a beauty queen, but I can tell you I've had more people have talked to me about my felt necklaces than anything else. So that is a really simple thing to do. And the other ones are the bigger pebbles, and the pebbles are really very, very simple, these pebbles, and you just make a fatter fold. So instead of making it really flat, you make it much fatter. So let's take this back and get the bubble wrap again. So get some little bit of colour, and I would fold it over and make it just like a little stone, really. That's all you need to do. Rub it a little bit. Lingerie bag, comes out perfect. And then you can then either thread them up that way or long ways. And I do have in my collection, I'll turn my heater off, my collection here, I should have quite a few of these. That's it, the bigger ones. So this is a bigger, you can see that they're all different pebble sizes, and I've just threaded them up together, and they make a lovely necklace. Now what you could do is you could use spacers on this, and the spacers could be the little silver ones, will look really good. So you thread, you can get them smaller than this, so you can thread one of these beads with a little silver spacer in between, so it sits like that, or black, and it sets off the bead beautifully. The other thing I use is, let's talk about, when I'm threading up, I've got 2 different things. Now here is, this necklace is done on a beading twine. Actually, this is a bit thinner than the one that I've used here, but very easy to get hold of. On the internet, lots of beading companies have it, and I've tied it on to a little magnetic catch, which I like really. I think as long as you haven't got a pacemaker, I think probably not a good idea if you've got a pacemaker, but the magnetic catches are great, and you get a really nice little necklace. I like that necklace. I do wear it sometimes. The other thing I have my little box of tricks here, is these are the round magnetic catches, and they also, they work really well, but I would put this on one of the bigger, if I was doing a necklace with bigger pieces, I would use this. And you use these with crimps, and the crimps are really, really tiny. It's going to be difficult to show you these, but they're really tiny. You put them on either side of your magnetic catch, because you're threading the wire through and then back in again, and you clamp them down with pliers, and it holds them in position. So have I got something with a crimp on? Yeah, this should be it. This. No, I sewed that one on. Sorry. Oh, look at that here. Oh, here. Yeah, this has got a little crimp. I don't know if you can see it. It's just holding the thread, so it's gone into the crimp, and then into the eye of the catch, and then you take it back through the crimp, and with pliers you squeeze it together, and then just cut off any excess that you've got. Really easy to do, and they're really useful. I think that is, I mean, you can get normal catches. I have to say I do like the using the magnetic catches, but then I don't have a pacemaker. And the other thing which I didn't show you, but I made a fatter end on this one with the eye. Pretty easy to do. I think it's just like having an extra bit that you just fold back and then fatten it up. And then I used some of these, which they will be on my website later today. They're these little tiny flat back crystals. They're really pretty, all different colours. So there's a whole collection of them. I think pale, and then there's a dark collection, and they're really inexpensive. And I just put a tiny drop of glue on the back and stick them onto the felt, and they're fine. So I think we probably covered as much as I possibly can. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and let's go back to me and my shed. You can see around my shed all the wool. I'm just a sucker for wool. Wherever I go in the world, I buy wool. I was in Iceland and I bought wool. Mind, it was the only cheap thing there. So really, from me, I think that will be it. I've shown you everything I can, and just enjoy. And any questions, please, again, my website, feltbetter.com. Write to me, and I answer all my emails, all my requests. and just keep well and enjoy. So from me, I'm going to say goodbye.